Men, your kid may be on the spectrum and you're not quite sure what to do. If you're a father like me and have questions, maybe you're a puzzled dad too. Welcome to the Puzzled Dads Podcast, where we're cracking the code of autism, one piece at a time. Welcome to the Puzzled Dads Podcast. I'm your host, Jamar Whitehurst. Thank you for coming alongside of us, joining us today, as we have a special episode today. I'm excited for what we're going to bring, who we're going to talk to, but we'll go through our normal particulars. I'm going to open us up in a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for allowing us this opportunity to just talk about our experiences as dads with children with autism. Just guide our conversation, allow it to touch somebody, to encourage somebody, encourage another dad, another parent. But I thank you. Thank you for my brother for being able to come on today and just join me in this conversation. We praise your names. In Son Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Again, welcome back to the Puzzle Dads Podcast. Thank you for joining. Again, if you want to reach out to us, you can reach out to us at puzzledads@gmail.com. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. The handle's at Puzzle Dads. Or if you want to listen in on this podcast, we're on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Apple Podcasts. Anywhere you want to join us. I have a special guest today. I'm bringing in my brother Malik Abdullah Douglas. Me and this brother have known each other for well over 20 years. So this conversation can go on for hours, literally, just because we have a lot we can talk about, a lot we know about each other and how we relate to one another, think alike, very intelligent, big brother to me. This is my frat brother who helped bring me into the fold, who helped teach me. And so I want to introduce my big brother Malik Abdullah Douglas.
How's it going? Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you, big bro. And I'm a little casual, but yeah, thank you, big bro, because you definitely know what you mean to me, and you definitely know the relationship we have and the impact you've had on my life. You know, we won't go into details of why we call each other our road dogs, but that's my road dog. So how are you doing today?
I am well. No complaints on this end. I'm blessed to see another day and live another day. As our other big brother say, it is good to be seen and not viewed.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, I typically start these out with a definition of the day, give the people just a word, something to think about that kind of guides our conversation. And today's definition is probably not going to be a surprise, or word of the day is not going to be a surprise, but it's brotherhood. What brotherhood is, the quality, state of being brothers, fellowship, alliance, an association for a particular purpose, such as a labor union or a fraternity, the whole body of persons engaged in a business or profession. But definitely in this case, our brotherhood is tied to our fraternity, but it goes deeper than our fraternity. Our fraternity motto is friendship is essential to the soul. And we can have blood brothers, blood siblings, right? But you choose your friends, and that's grown out of doing life together and adversity. Going through adversity together. And so, that's going to guide our conversation. As always, for the people listening in, those who are new, I give a disclaimer. I am not an expert on autism, but I am an expert on my son. And so while we are going to share our experiences with our children, there may be some differences, but there may be some similarities that you can connect with as well. So, Brother Malik, tell the people a little bit about yourself first. Tell them about your nonprofit. Tell where you came from. Give them all the good details about yourself.
Okay. So first of all, again, let me thank you for allowing me to be a part of this journey. I was here when you took your very first baby steps with Puzzle Dads Podcast. And so I am blessed to be here, to be able to sit here as your platform grows. I am a graduate of Grambling State, where you and we also share that in common. Before that, I came from Benton Harbor, Michigan, proud Benton Harbor Tiger. Went on to Grambling to become a G-Man Tiger, go Grambling State. Yes, we are fraternity brothers, members of one of the greatest chapters and one of the greatest fraternities on the planet, Gamma Gamma chapter of Grambling State University. And one of the things that I can honestly say that got me to this journey, and I hear you speak about adversity. Coming into the fraternity, we went through our share of adversity coming in, going through Grambling, which is a proud and illustrious HBCU. But we all know that attending an HBCU, you got to do a little extra to get out. You know,
Yeah.
you can't just put the numbers together and put the answer on paper, and then at the end of the day, they hand you a degree. There's a little bit extra you have to put on it. So, being a proud graduate of Grambling State, I did it twice. I went there and got my master's degree as well, but went on to acquire four other master's degrees from other good institutions, as far as I'm concerned. But that opportunity allowed me to move forward and acquired my first doctorate. I'm now working on another at Jackson State University, where I was able to retire from the military after 23 years. And so I have moved to the Jackson Delta area of Mississippi, and this is where I reside. I am the founder and president of Ndugu Kwa Ndugu, which is a nonprofit for boys between the ages of 14 to 24. And we help them to navigate life, find ways to attend college, make them aware of what resources are available to them, job solicitation, helping them find various jobs, getting training. What else is out there for them besides just going to work? Me being a retired military person, 23 years United States Army, I'm able to really mentor a lot of young men on what it means to join the military. I can only speak for the Army intimately, but I give them the opportunity and the tools for themselves and their parents to navigate through the recruiting process. And then you say, what got me here? And I also look at and I stir in that pot of adversity of being the father of two autistic children, both of them which are seniors this year. Michael having to navigate one older than the other. Michael is my eldest, David is my youngest. And but it seems like David is the eldest and Michael is the youngest at times. So Michael being my most severe on that spectrum, it is one of those things where I've been blessed that my two children have been able to guide each other through that process from emotional and social protection. And so as a father, especially being a divorced father and being detached from my children, that adversity plays a part as well because yes, I have to travel a lot and be with them. So when we talk about what journey I had, that's all part of my journey that's not just over yet. So we're going to see how it plays out. And maybe I can come back in next season and tell you how it is to be a father of two college students or a college student and a worker or however that works out. So I will tell you this, my journey has been long and it's been a hard road, but it has been fair and I am enjoying every step of it.
No, I mean, it's yes, I know a little bit about what you have endured and, but you continue to do it with a smile and a presence and people wouldn't know, just based off of your faith and just, how God has led you, saying to the place that you're at, given everything that has happened and given everything that you dealt with. But you're still an inspiration for me just watching you as a father. And I can recall the first conversation I had when we had our official diagnosis and just how you encouraged me and talk to me. And so yes, this won't be the last conversation we have. Definitely not. And because what I try to tell the people is things happen in seasons. And so where we're at when they're little children to teenagers, which that's what I'm going through now, to when they start and get to adulthood, right? Things change and we have to be able to adapt to that change. When you talk about Michael and David, what are some of the challenges you faced as they were growing up? Just well, first, what was your initial reaction to learning about, the diagnosis of not just one, but two boys being diagnosed with autism?
Okay. So there's a little history there. And if I can take a little latitude,
Hmm.
David was born premature. And so that's in part why they're so close in age. But in dealing with him being diagnosed with autism, we also had to deal with the physical, mental shortcomings of him being underdeveloped. And so anybody knows when you deal with a child that deals with health issues and things of that nature, being a premature, being a preemie, woo, it's that in itself is already a full-time job.
Yeah.
So then you're dealing with, and you find out. And so we found out. Now, luckily, my former mother in law, she was a lifelong educator. Taught for 35 years in the Houston Public School District from she taught everything from pre-K, excuse me, all the way up to high school. And when David and Michael were younger, she noticed that they weren't hitting those necessary milestones. And here we are, we're taking them to the doctor, we're taking them to the pediatrician, every time they had to go, every time, and I was a new dad, so every time they got a cold or, got a boo-boo, dad want to take them to the doctor. But none of the doctors were picking up on that Michael wasn't speaking very clearly, that David wasn't making eye contact, or he was an elusive individual when it came to being around other children his age or even recognizing adults. And for a new father, I'm taking it as, well, it's just developmental things. This is what kids go through. And so and shout out to Carol for actually identifying that and pushing my ex-wife to go and say, hey, you probably just want to get them tested, because I was in severe denial. I mean, when I say the eyes, nope, there's nothing wrong with them. They're okay. Michael's fine. Don't say that. You just have to give him time to grow up, and you put those blinders on.
Yeah.
And that's why you have to have a common sense partner. I would tell anyone, I'm not advocating that people, jump up and get married, because that's a whole nother pillar that could be a barrier if need be. But you have to have a common sense partner in which you raise children with. And somebody's got to be able to take the emotion out of rearing children and saying, hey, yes, they need to go to the doctor. Yes, they need to go to a specialist. And being that we were both active duty military, we had the world accessible to us. So we started the process of getting them tested. And when we found out that we actually got a diagnosis, it was then time for dad to come out of happy dad mode and actually go back into the education mode, where I started learning what it meant to be the father of two special needs children, because it's not the needs that they need, it's the needs that I need. It's what do I need to have in place for them? How do I address emotional and social meltdowns? How do I, delineate between bad behavior and fear? Because as you know, autistic children manifest and they present actions of fear a little different than other children. And to some people, they say, oh, he's throwing a tantrum. No, that's not a tantrum. Then you have to kind of look around and see what those dangers are that they perceive and how you address it. And everything can't be, the typical, well, sit down, or you're going to sit at time out. That doesn't work for them, because they need that explanation. But again, that's where I had to learn not to be the typical dad and be the special dad they needed.
Yeah, it's one of those it's one of those things where it is a unique experience with how we're taught, especially as in the African American community, to rear our kids, and trying to determine, now I've had this mindset of how I'm going to raise, especially if I have boys, how I'm going to raise them almost all my life. But now I have to adjust and rethink this, and I'm doing it almost blind because I don't have experience with it. Right. Yeah. So you talked about, just wanting to avoid the fact that this is what the diagnosis was, right? What helped you to kind of move past and get to that acceptance? How long did it take you to get to that acceptance?
To be honest with you, Michael is 18. I don't think I've still accepted it. I think what I've been able to do is overcome that they are not as normal of what we consider to be a normal child, because I have a whole new set of circumstances now. Michael is
Yeah.
18. He's graduating from high school. David is graduating from high school. And when June comes, whereas most parents would be happy that they're helping their children navigate to the next step, what is the next rung in that ladder? I have to kind of consider, hey, what is that next step? But that next step may still involve me being directly in their lives in some way. So I can't even say that I've totally accepted it, because acceptance would be allowing them to do things without having to necessarily think about it. Most parents, hey, they turn 18, I'm going on vacation. Well, what does that mean for them? Can they care for themselves for a few days? What do I need to have in place for them? Not thinking that, well, I'll just go to the grocery store and I'm going out of town. Here's a credit card, or here's money in your account, and move on. So I can't say that I've actually accepted it, because I also know that in the back of my mind, I always have to be thinking of them and for them in some cases. So it's really not even an acceptance. It's, hey, how do you continue to live your life while teaching them how to live theirs? And
Yeah.
then what places do I have to fit in? So even looking at your logo as Puzzle Dads, and I don't think people really understand that it's truly a puzzle. They start filling those big gaps, right? But then there's those little pieces that don't necessarily fit that, okay, dad has, and dad's resources too have to become a part of making that puzzle fit. It may not be exactly a round peg into a round hole. It may be an octagon peg forced into this round hole, but it does stop some of the leaking.
Yeah. When it's a double entendre, right? When people ask, "Well, why puzzle dads?" Well, the puzzle pieces used to be the official kind of emblem of autism. Now they switched to the infinity symbol. But when I think about like us as dads, us as men, right? It's hard enough just trying to raise our young men, but then
Yes.
trying to figure out how to raise our young men who are autistic, right? Is why this is called puzzle dad, because we just don't know. Kind of like what you said earlier. Just we're learning something new. We're learning different, and then at each age, we're learning something different on how to parent them, how to raise them, how to discipline them, those type of things, how to prepare them for whatever that next season of life is. What are some of the challenges maybe along the way that either they had to overcome or you had to overcome as a dad?
It's a great question. And I see it more so from my perspective than theirs.
Hmm.
They are adaptive. They will adapt. It may take a little longer. It may not be as clean as I would like. It may not be as streamlined as I would like, but it's also for me to take those bumpers off. Always think back to when we used to go to the bowling alley, and up until they were maybe 8 and 9, we'd put the bumpers up so they could throw and then they wouldn't go down and, they wouldn't shoot gutter
Hmm.
balls.
Yeah.
As a father, you want to protect your children every step of the way. I have two adult children, but and I find myself wanting to protect them in every way. But as a father, I also have to with my other adult children who are not autistic. There were those milestones in their lives that I had to kind of release a little bit, let go of some of those reins so that they can become the men that I hoped I raised them to be. And so even having David and Michael, it's knowing that they're not made of fine crystal. They're going to bump and not break. They're going to bend and not fall apart. And so it's really for me to realize when I need to let go, when enough is enough. But like I said, Michael is the most severe on that spectrum. And so there are certain things that cue me today that lead me to believe that he may not be 100% able to go off to a university or a 2-year school and live in a dorm, even though, yes, I have the resources to pay for a shadow, someone who can live in and can help him out and help him with his schoolwork and navigate getting through college and making sure he's showing up to class on time and frequently. But even then, when is it time for dad to say, okay, hey, he's a sophomore in college. Your money can't buy everything. Some things you're going to have to let go of. You're going to have to let him try. And what does that look like if you allow him to try? How do we overcome failure? And I think that's the biggest thing with a lot of fathers, especially me. I wasn't a young father. I was 30 years old now. So I wasn't a young father, but you always, kid stumbles and the first thing you do is you reach for him. Oh, don't fall. But sometimes you have to let them fall to be able to know how to catch their balance, right? Or don't touch that hot stove. Every so often, you might let them, get a little close and then move that hand away and say, don't touch that hot stove. It's going to burn you. But maybe one day you have to let them reach out and touch that stove. But it's really for me to realize that, hey, dad, he's 18. He's going to make some 18-year-old mistakes and he's going to make some I'm not as knowledgeable as my peers mistakes. And I've got to see how I help him navigate and really reorient himself on those mistakes without doing it for him, which makes a bigger crutch, to be honest.
Yeah. So tell me, so you said something that I'm definitely feeling now, having a son going through puberty. Things that are attributed to where they're at their age versus things that they're doing because they're autistic. And how have you navigated especially from through the teenage years to where they are now, trying to balance the difference of they're doing these things because they're at this age and all their other peers are doing the same thing versus no, that's something that they're doing because it's related to the autism versus their age. How have you balanced that or navigated that dynamic of trying to understand that about your boys?
I think it's the trial and error. I really do. I think it's the trial and error phase of life, allowing them. And that's one of the biggest things, being a father of two autistic children. And of course, David and Michael, because Michael, his birthday is the 5th of September. And so he wasn't able to start school with the children his age. So he had to wait a year. It's being able to see that, how, wow, that's what kids do, right? And then being able, on the other hand, to say, well, that might not be necessarily the right thing to do, or that might not be necessarily what he should be doing or where he should be. Because realistically, it's understanding that autism is not a social detractor. Young people are going to be young people. Children
Hmm.
are going to test their parents and authority. They're going to do everything that children typically do. It's the same things we did at their age. And we can sit and, oh, well, we didn't have this technology and this is why kids, no, because we had advanced technology to our parents' age, to our parents' era. I'm a Gen Xer and my mom's a baby boomer. So it's really one of those things where it's like, hey, what you have to be able to have the foresight to understand that this is what children do because this is what children do. But then you have to also, now that when we look at us as puzzle dads, we have to be able to understand, read, get the necessary information, talk to people who are older than us that have been dealing with this process, talk to the doctors and find out, hey, is this normal? Is that natural? And then accepting it. Because a lot of times it's just things we don't want to accept. And that's, I want to say it was a big thing for me, but it wasn't. It's still a big thing for me having to accept that. Why do you do that? Why are you doing that? Why do you keep saying that? And it's for me to be able to say, that's who he is. It's just one of those things where you have to kind of look at, okay, puberty, adolescence, it's just a confusing time for young people as it is for parents. But dealing with two children with autism, and that there's a new dynamic there. It's being able to accept a little more than, oh, well, he'll grow out of it, or he's just a boy, or he's going through a phase, because they're going to go through the phases as their peers. And then there's a little extra dynamic. So I call it a phase plus.
Hmm.
So, as a parent, you either accept it or figure out how to get them over, around, through, and under that particular plus. And then you, as a parent, accepting that there is a plus.
So I'm stealing that. So everybody who's seeing this or hearing this, I'm stealing that there's a plus because I've been telling people. I said there's having a there's raising a teenager, then there's raising an autistic teenager. The emotions are just a little bit more amplified. They're a little more bit more heightened. The response is a little, yes, you get like you said, they get all of the feedback from them, all the talk back, the I don't want to do this, I just want my alone time, all these different things that young teenagers give you, but there's just a little extra juice on it that I'm
Mhm.
feeling with Jamar, going through puberty. So, but I like that, it's just a little plus, little plus. So no, that, it's been an interesting journey just trying to navigate for me, the difference, especially at this age, the difference between what's happening with him and other kids his age versus what's attributed to the autism. But it's just part of that learning and growing process. One other question I had is, like, what do you feel like you've learned about yourself all these years, just being a parent of two autistic kids? What do you think you've learned about yourself? How have you grown, over these now 18 years through this experience?
One, patience. I was, and probably still, I'm still not the most patient person in the world. But I also know that when David and Michael are around, I have to be more patient. I can definitely tell you I am, and this has nothing to do with military training, but I am far more adaptive to other people's needs. And being with David and Michael, and I'm pretty sure with young Jamar, you deal with the same thing, where the favorite food yesterday is not the favorite food today. And so you go and you load up on the favorite food, and you want to make sure that they have those comforts in place to make sure that their emotions are leveled, because they're never, you can never get them to a fixed emotional state. They'll just, you just have to level it. And how do you keep them calm? And what worked yesterday won't work this morning. So it's definitely made me a more heightened individual, or have a heightened awareness of the needs of other people, even to the people I work with, who other children around me. And I can give you a perfect example. Even yesterday, I was at the barbershop, and young man was going through it. He was having a fit, and but I knew right on, this young man is either autistic or he has some type of special need. And the mother was embarrassed. And I stepped up, showed him my cell phone, gave him one of my earbuds, and he was able to listen to now this kid, he had to have been about 12, 13 years old, but taking the earbud, listening to a children's song. It was a child's nursery rhyme. But it was set to an up tempo beat, typically found in hip hop music. And he sat down, didn't even take the phone. He just sat down and he listened to the music. And I just continued to scroll through the music, and the young man just calmed down. And the mother was like, "Yeah, but when you walk away, he's gonna act up again." My children have taught me to identify issues that are going on in other people, to build a more conscious perception of what's going on with other people. And now I lost a set of earbuds because of this young man, but I shared the app with the mother, and she was able to get the 14-day trial. And I gave her my earbuds so that because it's a very annoying app. It's like any other children's music. It's very annoying, but it was able to calm him down, and it got him to the point where he could be amongst people. And in this particular barbershop, it's very bright, but it's very loud. And so the emotional stimulation for him was probably just too much at the time. But my boys have given me the opportunity to see things not from a more selfish perspective, that, oh, that child needs to calm down, or mom needs to give him a spanking. Nah, there's something going on here. And we need to identify other ways and other means to get our children to behave in what we consider a normal or a leveled state. And I really think that's one of the things that David and Michael have taught me over the years, is how to address issues that most people would probably extreme. And I'm able to address on a more calm, more amenable manner, a more conscious manner of what's going on with that child, or even some adults. I mean, I've had issues at restaurants with adults, where people just, a calming word, or just showing them a different way to manipulate their spoon and fork, would calm
Yeah.
an adult down in a social setting. And I thank David and Michael for that, because even though I didn't have to deal with extreme meltdowns, I still dealt with meltdowns. And I was never that guy that dealt with pressure well. I didn't. I didn't deal with adversity well, but they taught me how to really calm my own heart, how to learn how to see people from a different perspective, and that everything is not one size fit all.
Talk about and give some dads out there, or even moms who may watch this, just kind of some encouragement, because that experience that you just talked about, I'm sure for that mom was, that's something she experiences every day, but is not sure how to deal with it. And I think part
Mhm.
of that comes from the acceptance of accepting this is what this is. Even, we understand that our young black men or young black boys tend to be not diagnosed till later in life, right? And so talk about, and maybe encourage some of the dads out there about that social anxiety of when they're having meltdowns, when they're going through that, and why staying calm is more important than kind of reacting and worrying about, being embarrassed or those type of things, but just making sure that they focused on their child more than anything as those type of things happen.
The one thing I would love to say to all parents, whether you have children or not, or you're planning on having children, or you are, especially mothers who are pregnant now, one thing I would say to all parents: autism testing does not hurt your child. And I would say to all parents, somewhere around the age of 12 to 18 months, you may just want to go through the cognitive and diagnosis training, or diagnosis testing, because it doesn't hurt to know as soon as possible. Once you find out, learn as much as you can. Stay read up, stay in that DSM-5 so that you know what the commonalities are. Look for those things that are different, but at the same time, accept the fact that your child is different, because your child is going to present the same actions and detractions and everything in the world as a normal child, as what we consider to be a normal child. But at the same time, that one distinct difference: if they're an introvert, don't force them to be around other people, but find opportunities that they can be around their peers. It's not always about having to adapt to adults. That's one of the biggest mistakes you could ever make, is that, and this is with any child as far as I'm concerned, that a child they need to know how to treat grown people. No, they don't. No, they don't. You need to express to your child how to respect adults. But if you have an autistic child, you need to make sure that they are around their peers. They know that there are limitations even with your peers. You can't take things, they can't take things from you. But at the same time, just understand that that acceptance is not the fact that you're accepting that your child will be less than. There are too many cases and points out there where autistic people have gone out and done great things in medicine, in the world of autism. There's no one size fits all. There is no magical pill or elixir that's going to in some way heal your child, right? But at the same time, if you accept that they are different, once that parent accepts that their child is different, what those differences look like, and then they're able to help them go over and around, above, through, under, crawl next to, slide by, miss by the skin of their teeth, they can get past those differences. And I promise you, it will do more for you, and it will move mountains for your child. They're going to always prove to you that they are brilliant. That's any child. They're going to always prove to you that they're brilliant. But the thing is how do parents draw out that brilliance and allow them to shine without the parent wanting to, in some way, realize or recognize that my child isn't different. See, they're just the same. No, they're slightly different, but they're still a child. Those milestones for what is it, 1 to 5, 6 to 9, 9 to 12, they're going to still hit those milestones. Maybe not as hard as some other child, but they're going to hit those milestones. And when they do, you have to be prepared for how you will react to those milestones. And as a father of two teenage boys getting ready to graduate from high school, or two teenage young men getting ready to graduate from high school, it's not that difficult, and don't make it harder than it has to be. It's still rearing children.
That's good. No, thank you for that. You know what? We just, and even once we understand and dealing with the diagnosis from, toddler age, it's always good to still have that reminder, because sometimes we can let our mind linger to what if they didn't have the diagnosis, right? But that's not our reality. And so I definitely appreciate that reminder. Well, we'll kind of wrap up here in a little bit. Give me just one of the best stories about each of the boys, just kind of individually, and then one of the best stories that you have, like, with them together. Something that gives you the
Germany,
most joy.
Germany 2015.
Hmm.
We could not get them into a DODEA school, which is a DODEA school, when we were stationed there. We were able to get them into a German kindergarten, which, if you know anything about the Germans, their education system is gravely different than ours. It is immensely different than the US. And for David and Michael to go to a German kindergarten and make the grade. They picked up a second language. And so your children are still sponges at an early age. So they picked up a second language when they weren't even allowed to go to Head Start or kindergarten on for the US schools on post. And for them to do well in a German first grade class and actually able to come out, not they weren't the top of their class, but because they were bilingual and they saw things from different perspectives, from a US perspective and the German perspective, they were actually able to adapt to things much quicker than even their German peers. So that's something that I've always been proud of because it's manifested itself throughout life. They still know dialectical German. They still can talk on the phone, call some of their old friends over there in Germany and still talk on the phone in German. There's no combining of the two languages. Individually, my David, my youngest, my definite miracle child. That joker there. Woo! David has done great things in computers and robotics. And for him to continue to compete, continue to place every year, and even with some of his shortcomings, being able to remain competitive and wanting to compete, it just makes me beam every day. When he calls me, Dad, I need money for this competition. I need money for these parts. I need a motherboard. How many young people at that in between the ages of 9 to 18 are talking about motherboards? But that makes me proud of him. Michael is a little more reserved, but when Michael can call me and ask me, Dad, I need a book. Well, what book do you need? I need the history of Denmark Vesey and tell me the
Mm.
author and who published it. And this is how much it costs. Okay, well, I'll deposit the money in your account. Okay, good. But while you're doing that, I need money for this book as well. To just see that, one of the things dealing with autistic children is that they just don't read often or they don't read as well. So they get distracted from the academic process. For
Mhm.
him to just call and say, I want this book. I want this book. Now he does hit me up for a lot of, the Diary of a Wimpy Kid books, and that drives me nuts. But he will ask me for upper level reading books. And Michael has tested that he reads at a 12th grade level. So the majority of children in school don't read higher than an 8th grade level. And that's for
Yeah.
some of your more affluent schools. Public education tests up to the 6th grade level. So for my children, especially for Michael being higher on the spectrum, reading at such a high level, comprehending at such a high level, that just, it does. Again, it makes me beam. It makes me understand that he's getting the world around him. Now, individually, together, just the fact that they've gotten to this point, I mean, it's already a blessing that our children make it to their senior year. And you and
Mhm.
I, we fully understand. We see the demographics. We see the statistics about young black males and the dropout rate and things of that nature. The fact that they have gotten to this point, I am truly blessed beyond all measure that they have reached the age of 17 and 18. They've gotten here without hurt, harm, or danger, and they are still pushing on to get that first major step in life of getting that high school diploma.
Yeah. Um, I want to give you your props because you have a big part in how they've made it this far. And so just I know how much you love them and love on them, and a lot of these milestones and a lot of these joys that you have are because of the job that you've done as their dad and just kind of leading and caring for them. Well, my brother, big bro, road dog, I appreciate you coming on, being my first guest of the season as we embark upon this new journey for the podcast. I love you. You know the love I have for you. And again, we could talk even more, but we'll save it for the next episode.
Yes, sir.
But I do want to thank you again for coming on, just spending your time with me. Any parting words that you want to give to the people?
When it comes to our autistic babies, give them the love they need, the love they deserve, and the patience that will help us all.
I love that. I love that. This has been uh the Puzzle Dads podcast. I want to thank my big bro, my guest, brother Malik Abdullah Douglas, for joining me today, joining us. And I hope you heard something that encourages you, something that will uplift you, some sort of information that will help guide you in this journey, whether your child has been diagnosed or if you're thinking about getting them tested. So I want to thank my brother again. Remember, you can reach out to us at puzzledads@gmail.com, on Facebook and Instagram with the handle Puzzle Dads. You could check us out on YouTube, but then also you can listen to us on the podcasting platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. Well, thank you all for joining us today. Thank you for listening in. Just continue to be encouraged as we go through this journey. And just remember, Puzzle Dads, we are cracking the code of autism one piece at a time. Have a blessed day. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed listening to the Puzzle Dads podcast with me as your host, Jamar Whitehurst. For more information on autism, check out autismspeaks.org, along with other resources listed on our social media pages. Don't forget to leave a review and follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and subscribe to this podcast on your favorite streaming platforms such as Spotify and Apple Music. Remember, Puzzle Dads, to keep cracking that code, because God has a plan for each of us and our children. Have a blessed day.